Okay, in this video I want to roughly show you a difference between perimeter and area. Actually show you with something more familiar. So, take a look at this beautiful, lovely, circular tablecloth. And around it, I have put all these little strips of paper that would represent a way I could measure the circumference, or what we call the perimeter of the circle. Okay, so these scraps of paper represent roughly the circumference. Obviously, it's going to be off, but it gives you an idea. Now, how does that compare with the area of whatever this tablecloth is? Well, let's find out. If I were to take all of these that represents the circumference and place them now inside the circle, which now we're talking about the area, I'm expecting this to be not enough to fill the circle. And of course, to be fair, I have to make sure these are equally spread out as I can make them. And this is the result. Whereas these scraps of paper were enough to go completely around the circle and give me a rough idea, they're nowhere near enough to represent the area of this actual circle. Okay, so what we can do now is use a little math to confirm. I've used that to come up with the radius of this nice tablecloth to be, my radius of it is going to be 7.375 inches. Okay, so I measured it out. It told me that it was 7 3/8, which is 7.375 inches. Okay, so I know that these scraps of paper represented the circumference, so let's see what that would actually be in terms of a number in math. 2 pi r, that's my formula for the circumference, and when I plug in, I get 2 times pi times 7.375 inches. Okay, I'm going to bring the old calculator over to do the rest. This may or may not be allowed in your class. If it's not, then use 3.14 for pi and maybe round this up to 7.4 to ease your calculations. Okay, so when I do this calculation, I get that this is 46.338. So I'll go ahead and use 46.34 for my circumference. 34 inches. Okay, so there is the number I get for the circumference of this tablecloth. This is the full distance around, represented by the papers at first. Now an actual number, 46.34 inches. Okay, how does that compare with the actual area? Well, luckily for the area, this is still all I need to know. So area, being that it's pi r squared, all I have to do is, again, plug in. I get pi times 7.375 inches squared. Okay, calculator will finish this off for me. 7.375, that's not it. 375. I want to square that result. There it is. And then just multiply by pi. Okay, so when I do that, I get that this is 170.87 inches. Now, I've mentioned this before, and I'll say it in this video again. This is a perimeter circumference. So when I did the units, I left them as just inches. Over here for area, I have no choice but to make my units square. So there's one application of using perimeter versus circumference. Perimeter represented as circumference versus area of the exact same shape.